afternoon and welcome to Tetewathá, Partyline Talk Show. I'm your host, Lance Stacy, and today we're going to be talking about emergency location mapping system, which was launched or is launched. You correct me, Lloyd Phillips.
It's in the process of implementation.
Okay, perfect. I'm joined by Lloyd Phillips of Public Safety at the MCK, Dwayne Zacharie, Chief of the Kahnawà Peacekeepers, as well as David Scott from the Kahnawà Fire Brigade. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. I know you were at the Services Complex this morning. I saw some pictures up of your, I guess, meeting with the community. I know I had a nice little envelope on my door last week when I got home, so let's talk about the launching a little bit. What's going to take place?
Okay, well, I'm sure most people have heard about it by now, that there's a new system that's currently being implemented in the community, which we're calling emergency location mapping, which gives everybody a specific emergency address that first responders can use to help improve response times, in the case of an emergency. It's been something that's been discussed amongst first responders for a number of years now, saying there has to be a better way, because our community has expanded immensely, as we all know, in the past 20, 30 years, and finding a specific person's home is getting much more difficult, and as well as the first responders themselves are also getting younger, which is good. We have a lot of people in their 20s and 30s now who are first responders. But I say first responders, I'm talking about firefighter, paramedics, and peacekeepers. That they may not be as familiar with locations as you and I would maybe in the land.
Well, I'm just going to let you know, I had a hard time. I went down in the new development last week to pick my nephew up, and he gives me instructions. I ended up on a dead-end road. I don't know any of the homes. I had to backtrack, come all the way back, and he's telling me, giving me instructions. I couldn't find it for a good 20 minutes. I'm out there. Couldn't believe the number of homes, half of whom I don't know who it was. It's not like you would go down any of the other parts of the community when it expanded. This was like, wow. So I said, I can imagine someone who has no clue to the area or looking for someone's home, because I knew none of it. Anything past that one area at the end before you take that turn, and I ended up on a dead-end road. I have no idea what I was doing, but that was my experience, so I'm there. I could understand somebody who's not familiar with the new development, or people who live way out on a farm and trying to locate them under a panic, because here it was just picking up my nephew. It wasn't a major emergency, but I can tell you the light bulbs went off, and I thought about how important that this was going to be in finding people.
Yeah, because when you're calling for fire, ambulance, or police, I mean, it's obviously a stressful time in the person's life, and it's to have them sometimes explain where they live. It may not come across appropriately, but on the receiving end as well, as first responders, there's also a level of stress on that side as well. And there's nothing worse than having a feeling saying, go to Lloyd Phillips' house, and you're like, well, where does he live? Oh, he lives next to his brother, JR. Well, I don't know where JR lives either.
Yes.
And the stress levels start rising. So it's also a benefit to the first responders themselves to be able to say, now I could clearly find out where I got to respond to in a quick time to get to an emergency. It's we always like to use the terminology, every second counts and stuff like that, but in this case it really is true, and sometimes 30 seconds or a minute ain't gonna make a major difference in certain situations, but sometimes literally seconds count on whether somebody either the situation escalates and it becomes a violent situation, or a person's medical condition gets much worse, or a fire could have been put out easily, but because of delays now it's a major inferno. So there's sometimes these seconds do make major differences.
And like I said, that 15-20 minutes, holy cow, and it was like, I said, oh my God, could you imagine? And I backtracked, went back, followed his instructions, and still didn't get it. So for me, I can't imagine if you're a peacekeeper or the fire brigade or ambulance trying to find someone, and your jobs as first responders is heightened as it is already. Dwayne, how does that impact the peacekeepers?
Well, I think this is a system that will definitely help the peacekeepers, right? And Lloyd hit the nail on the head when he said we have a lot of new, younger officers, right? They may not be as familiar with the community as some of our older peacekeepers, right? And the department is getting younger, right? We're always hiring new people, so it makes a lot of sense. At the same time, the community is growing, right? It's so different than it was when we were younger.
Absolutely.
You know, and we may not know where everyone lives now, so it is going to be very useful for us. And for us, one of the biggest things is now we want to educate the community. We want them to be aware of what their new address is, right? Their emergency address. So every time they call the peacekeepers, regardless of the level of emergency, we want them to tell us their address, so that way they get used to it and it becomes like second nature to them, right? Because it's so vital.
David, in terms of the fire and ambulance, I would assume that time also helps in responding for your guys as well.
For the ambulance and the fires, for sure. You're going to get an address from the dispatcher, 107 River Road. You're going to type that into the tablets that are in the trucks. That's one less thing you have to worry about. Now you got to prepare yourself, because you got information over the radio or by the phone. If it's a cardiac, paramedics have things they got to prepare. They got to start thinking. They got to get ready for what's going on in the call, and worrying about if it's the third house from the stop sign across from the blue house. We eliminated that now.
Right.
Now, from the time of the call and you punch in the address, they can prepare themselves mentally for the situation they're walking into. So it's going to work for us. 100%.
So I guess let me ask a question. How, being at the services complex, how was the response from the community? Because I know there's been some people who were going months back, and the first time I had brought people on the air, there were concerned people that information was going to go out to all kinds of people. Mm-hmm. It was going to be, people will find people even if you didn't want. And we had to clarify how it was for the emergency purposes only.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to underscore, with double lines and bold, that this is for emergency responders only, and that's the sole intent of what we're doing here. But we had a few kiosks. There's actually one today. There'll be another one on Friday, where people can go there and they have it set up with like a 45-inch screen. They can see the map itself, see their location, verify that's their home, and then everybody gets an envelope explaining the process with a magnet and a sticker that you can put on your fridge or by your phone, where it tells you your emergency location address. Response has been overwhelmingly positive.
Okay, good.
And people people spoke to, have understand that it's definitely a need in the community to have something like this. We understand, in the past people were reluctant for some type of addressing system, but again, this is strictly for emergency purposes, and it's to benefit every single person in the community, including the responders. Because I'd just like to take off a point that David had mentioned, and I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety, but as many people know, I've also been a member of the Kahnawake Fire Brigade for many years, and I've been a paramedic for almost 30 years, and so I understand the need. Like you said, I want to emphasize that point, because when you respond to a call, for the paramedic, and I'm sure the same thing is for peacekeepers, when you receive the initial information, the call starts there for you in your brain, in your mind, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to walk into here. If a person's having chest pain or shortness of breath, what am I going to do? What equipment do I need? What's the protocol I got to follow? What are some of the possible scenarios? So these things are running to your mind en route to the call. And like I said, that's one listing. If I'm worried about where am I going, I'm not quite sure. No, I'm not concentrating on what medical care I got to give. I'm more worried about just getting to where I got to go. So this gives first responders one step ability to be able to prepare themselves to appropriately treat the patient.
Okay, on that note, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tetewathá, the Party Line Talk Show. I'm your host, Len Stacy, and today we're talking about the new emergency location mapping system and the launch for it. And I'm joined by Lloyd Phillips from Public Safety, Dwayne Zacharie from Chief of the Kahnawake Peacekeepers, and David Scott from the Kahnawake Fire Brigade. I guess one of my questions, and I had seen this on social media, was about the naming of the streets. And we had a little bit of a discussion off air. And I think it's important because we know some streets as one name, other people in the community know a street as a different different name. And I guess how important was the choosing of these names and accurate for the emergency part of this, I guess, is my question to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, this project's been in development for about 2 years, and there was a committee of people from the Peacekeepers, Fire Brigade, Public Safety, who got together to look at all the existing unofficial names of these roads to see what would be the best way to name them. And a lot of times there was like duplication of names, like some people refer to like Mohawk Street, for example. I think there was a couple that were called themselves Mohawk Street, either officially or unofficially, and so they need to be clarified. Like there was different roads that were known by one person as something, and then somebody else knew it as another name. So and I know there was a lot of that discussion. And so what they tried as much as possible is to the commonly referred to names in the community, like Old Malone Highway, for example. Everybody knows it's Old Malone Highway. Fine, let's leave it Old Malone Highway. River Road is River Road. People know what those are, but and then expanding out from there to saying the commonly known areas and try the best to be consistent and to respect the names that have been there for many years. But doing that as well, it became problematic because if you say, like Macumber Road is a common name, in the community, but then you have then you add, somebody says, well, we're not Macumber Road, we're Macumber Lane. And then stuff like that. So again, we had to try to find a balance between saying to make it clear, but also make it so it's not confusing.
Right.
That where am I really going? Am I going to Macumber Lane or am I going to Macumber Road? And that
again takes seconds off the responding time.
Yeah, and that's like the way it went about it. And then they went like in a very systematic way, looking at road by road and doing a little bit of history on each area and say who lived there first and who's the first homes in that area. Is there any significance to this spot that they can name the road? And they tried as much as possible to use Mohawk words, more simple Mohawk words as you can, just again for ease of sake. But it also has the English translation with it, so somebody could use either name. But we're trying to obviously to encourage a little bit of the language. It never hurts to have that in there, to have that language element in there, and to make it something more unique to Kahnawake, right? But if somebody can't pronounce or doesn't know the Mohawk pronunciation, you can always revert to the English one. Like for example, we used the example of Wata, maple. Well, it's like, okay, I'm at two Wata. Well, if you're not really sure how what is, well, I'm at two maple. Fine. So the translation is there as well, and so it's done that way. And I understand some people may not be happy with the name that was chosen for their road because they know it as something, or it's personal. Like even my road, it's like I found out they called it LeClaire Road. I'm like, why LeClaire?
That darn Keith LeClaire.
Yeah, that Keith LeClaire. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, and it's well, he was the first house on the road and whatever, and fine. I mean, I could live with that, but there's also a process in place. Let us roll this out. Let's get it implemented into the community. Get it moving. But there's always room down the road. If the neighbors and the people on the street want to change the name to something, then there's a process for that. But let us roll it out first. Get things operational, and then if you need to tweak things as we go, by all means, we're open to that.
For myself, I didn't think it was a big deal because I knew it was only being known by the emergency people. But my question was more geared because there were a lot of people out there who had questions on how and why. And I think the different names causes problems because we could say a name and all six of us in the studio would probably come up with a different location, based on our experience within the community. Yeah,
and exactly. And maybe to expand that on one point I want to emphasize as well is, first of all, the location itself. That's what it is. Emergency location map. So the address that you get is for that location.
Right.
It doesn't follow the person because we know in the community people rent homes and they move from one location to the other. That number doesn't follow you. It's that's like for that home or that apartment or whatever it may be or building that stays with them. It doesn't follow you. So. It could be something different living in a house in 2, 3, 4 years down the road, or multiple people over the years. The location does not change. If it's
it's based
Street,
on the house.
It's based on that. On
Okay,
that.
perfect.
So again, that's important for people to understand and know. But also, there's you mentioned a while ago about 6 different locations,
Yeah.
which is again, it's coming to a point now where it's generational.
Yeah.
Because if I sit and tell somebody, well, we used an example last week in one of our meetings. We said, if I told you I live right next door to the old Fleurs.
Which one?
Exactly. And if I look at you and maybe David and maybe the people in this room, okay, we may go to the village, right? But
Right.
then to a younger person to say, Old Fleurs, that's on Old Malone Highway.
Yeah.
No, that's one example. Or go to Stock's Corner. You know where Stock's Corner is?
Yeah.
No, I do. We all do in this room. But ask a 20-year-old or 25-year-old where Stock's Corner is. They may not know. Maybe even Kane's Corner. All these common places, Wimpy's Corner.
Yeah.
All these things that we know in this room. But ask somebody who's 25, even 30 years old. They may not have a clue. So that's, again, the reason why things had to evolve to a way to ensure that, again, public safety, emergency response has the ability to get to your home quickly.
I'm also thinking people who live out on the farm. You know, there were sections of the farms where there were little communities, you know, in different areas. But now people have even branched out further. So they're like way out on the outskirts and may not even have neighbors. Like, how would you respond to a place like that?
So
You know?
I agree with Lloyd. It was time for the system to evolve.
Yeah.
The community's gotten too big. Decisions were taken a couple of years ago that not everybody was going to be happy, but people's lives are on
the line, right?
So I can give you a little bit of a scenario sometimes of what happens at the fire station. A call comes in by page or it comes in by phone. Mr. Jacobs' house, whoever it is, more often than not, everybody will congregate either in the bay or in the main area. Do you know where you're going? Is there more than one Mr. Jacobs? Well, I think it's this person. So we try to get that information right there in the fire station before they leave. And then if we can't do that, then we call back to the peacekeepers. Which Mr. Jacobs is it? And sometimes they're going to go and I think they're going to ask around because all you get is I need an ambulance at Mr. Jacobs' house and there's nothing else that's given. So we have the little powwow, for lack of a better word, before
Yeah.
the ambulance goes out to make sure people know where they're going, and then it goes from there. And that's a minute or two sometimes.
But even think if someone has the same names and we'll say
Yes.
John Jacobs and there's 10 or 15 John Jacobs, like, well, which one? And they live all over the community.
And that's something that was taken into consideration. You know, David's scenario is a real thing. It happens all the time. You know, and there are a number of people in the community that have the same name. And for us, we're always either attaching a nickname or a place to go with that person. You know, now with this new system, we don't need to do that because every location has a number and a name. You know, and for simplicity's sake, you know, some of the words or some of the street names that are out there, like you got to think about it. If people are typing it in Mohawk words can be really long.
Yeah.
So the English is also available because they can type that in and it it helps with quicker responses, right?
Absolutely. But those are all key points in doing this. It wasn't just there was a lot of work, a lot of discussion, a lot of dialogue, and at the bottom line of this was to be able to respond quicker.
Yeah, I mean honestly that's the end result, right? Knowing where you're responding to and as quickly as possible. And I said it's been rolling out for a while. Like you mentioned, Luann, that you had something put on your door.
Yeah.
We have individuals as well as some first responders have been out delivering a package to each and every home in the community that explains the system, and like I said, it gives you a magnet and it gives you information of your location that we ask everybody to obviously memorize, but also put it notably somewhere in your home so you know where it is, and get used to knowing that point, because it's also, you know, you don't know, like even a younger person, if you have a younger person in your home, to try to explain, where do you live? Well, I live near the cemetery. Well, a lot of people live near the cemetery.
Yeah.
You know, to have a younger person try to explain that, like talking maybe 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old may not be able to articulate properly. This way, if they say, I'm at, 5 Cemetery Road, boom. No, we know where you are.
But I think you're hitting on something important, and this was brought up a couple of months back about even parents teaching where you live to your children. You take for granted, like my nephew knows, well, where does your auntie live? At the bottom of the clays, across from Tommy T. Like he knows, but he's 5 years old, and we taught him, because if something happens, he knows the house, he knows where it is. And I think sometimes we don't take those preventative measures to teach our our children what section of town you're in or who your neighbors are. Before you knew everybody. My house is near the cemetery, so Catholic cemetery, and then you name near the Deers, right behind Evelyn Deers, so and everybody knew the whole section and the whole neighborhood knew. But today there's people who are transient, moving into different homes, moving in different things that make it different.
Yep.
We needed to come out of the dark ages. That's the way I could describe it best, is that we needed to come out of the dark ages, and this is only for emergency services. It's not for the pizza store.
Right.
It's not for the chicken delivery guy.
I'm glad you clarified that. That was my next.
This is dedicated solely to ambulance, fire, and police, and that's as far as it goes. You want a delivery from your pizza guy, you continue giving him
your instructions of where you live, right?
He's not going to have this mapping system to use.
I thought it was interesting because I saw that as well on social media, and that was one of the things that people said, oh, good, it'd be easier for the delivery guy to find my home. And to myself, I said, I don't think that's the purpose, because they won't have access to it.
No, exactly. The only people who have access to it are the first responders that have it, and we have a centralized location as well with the MCK Communications in the village. Even that, people might say, well, where's the village? We all know the villages, but yes.
Right. Which village?
Yeah. But, and where people can go there as well to pick up envelopes and verify on the map their location. But it's in the process of being rolled out. It's going to take time. It's a transition for first responders, for community, and it's going to take time to get used to it. And we're encouraging. We want people to start using that as much as possible. But I mean, in the interim, you could always still use the old system, right?
Right.
You could still say, well, I'm at 10 LeClaire Road. I live next to Mike Loftig, next to me across the street from Kate LeClaire.
Right.
That sort of thing. That you have a combination of the two. Great. That long as we could use both systems, together, and during a transition period, and then gradually, the new system will come more effective and be used more often, and everybody will be used to it. So this takes time. It may take months, it may take a little longer, but we need to start that journey.
If you're just joining us on Tetewathá, my guests in studio with me are Lloyd Phillips from Public Safety, Dwayne Zacharie from the Chief of the Kahnawake Peacekeepers, and David Scott from the Kahnawake Fire Brigade. We're talking about the emergency location mapping system that's being launched within the community. I guess one of the things that I'm curious to know is in terms of this, it's not going to change. This is going to be the system for the next little while.
Yeah,
unless
for
there's
sure.
new houses, and what would be the process for someone who's a brand new home going up? Will they contact your office? Who will they contact in terms of changes?
Well, right now it's a combination. I mean, they could contact public safety and of a new home. We also have MCK Communications, who's actively involved with the process. Also, a lot of this is obviously it's technical. It's a lot to do with computers and tablets and internet and stuff like that. So we have MCK information systems that are also involved. So I mean, if you contact somebody, one of those three organizations, or even if you want to contact the fire or police and let them know something, the information will get back and the map will be updated.
Yeah.
Because obviously things change.
Yeah.
People we're constantly growing as a community. We'll do our best to be proactive to add locations. But if not, if you're in doubt, contact one of the services, and we'll make sure that you're assigned the appropriate place. Update the map, because the update the map will be done on a regular basis. Even now, throughout the rollout of the process, we have people actually going door to door with the tablet, verifying the appropriate location before they deliver the envelopes and the package. And we're noticing that some modifications got to be done. And if there's a mistake made, it's noted, it's written down, it goes back to IT, the computer guys, and they update the map. They make modifications to make modifications to make sure that it's correct. And we found a few places that like a shed or something was marked as location. Old abandoned home was marked as location.
Okay,
so little things like that. We're modifying as we go. It's a very extensive process, because if you figure the whole entire community, all at one shot. So it's again, it's being phased in, and any tweaks that we have to do, we're doing them as we go.
I have a question from a listener who wants to know, where do they pick up the packages if they haven't gotten one already?
Well, right now as we speak, right now there's a kiosk at the service complex. There's somebody there. You can go there and pick it up, and also have a preview of the map that's there. Another one on Friday, but also people are going to be going door to door.
Okay.
And physically, putting something. Hopefully, if you're home, they'll hand it to you. But if not, they'll make it put on your doorknob or whatever, so you'll be able to see the information. And if you have any questions after you receive it, by all means, contact Public Safety or MTK Communications, and we'll answer your questions for you.
Yeah, because I thought that was important. Like, if I just got an envelope, and I mean, fortunately, I work here, so I knew a lot what was going on. But I'm thinking the community at large, some may have not heard. And you get this envelope, and it was like, wow, what do I do with it?
Exactly. So that's why we're trying our best to reach out. I mean, there's been several articles in local media. There's been publications and posters in the community. Service complexes, I think the third or fourth time they've been there. And such as we're doing today, talking to the community who may not have heard about it, and just to get it out there, to keep emphasizing the points, and the people who are aware may see it's a little bit redundant, repetitive, but not every time we talk on the radio or say something, new people are listening. So it's worth repeating sometimes over and over. And so we're doing our best to get out there. Social media helps people get out there and ask questions, and people start chiming in and that. And sometimes it can be negative, but at least people are aware of it, in that case.
And I think that's the important piece, because there are people who were responding who knew about the system, who were able to say contact here and contact there, not necessarily the service people, but, trying to make a point of educating the community on why it was so important. And that's why I brought up some of the questions, because I thought some of the questions were really good questions that people just didn't know. As much as we talk about the media, there's still people out there who choose not to. So,
Yeah, and that's why we're trying our best to reach out and to people, and as much as we possibly can, re-emphasizing the message over and over that this is for emergency responders only, and like David mentioned, it's not for the pizza delivery guy. It's not the point, it's not for Amazon.com and delivery. That's not the point.
Because there's a problem with getting boxes and packages delivered, right?
Definitely, but this is what we're looking at is only for emergency personnel, and it's a new system. And it's gonna evolve. We're looking at a phase 2 already that we're gonna have. It's internal. People won't see it externally, but to make sure that, like for example, if you punch in an address on Home Alone Highway for this location at the radio station, from the fire department to here, if I punch in the address, it'll show my location and it'll show me the exact directions on how to get here. So that's going to be phase 2. That's for the first responders to be able to, again, quicker access and guided direction. Much similar to, like, if you go on Google Maps or something, you punch in a location, the fastest directions or whatever, and it shows you on the roads. Something similar.
And sometimes they're wrong. No,
well, sometimes they're wrong, but for the most part, it's a benefit. It's a quicker response time, and it's a heck of a lot better than what we have now. So
absolutely,
it's exciting. I understand it's a major change in the community. It's something that's new to many people, but when you're talking about health and safety, well-being, it's that I think that trumps anything else.
Absolutely. On that note, let's take a break, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Tetewathá Party Line Talk Show. I'm your host, Luann Stacy, and today we're talking about the emergency location mapping system that will be used by our first responders. And I'm joined by David Scott, Dwayne, Zacharie, and Lloyd Phillips. Before going to break, we were talking a little bit about the envelope, and I guess one of the things is you get that envelope. Where do you suggest, like, what should people do in terms of making sure that people within the home know the address, your children know the address, in terms of where's a good location to put it? It's like, I have on my fridge, I have the Peacekeeper's number, I have the fire brigade, and I always make sure the kids know, if anything happens, this is the number you call. I mean, you don't know. Especially if I have a revolving house where there's always different people in. So I have to make sure, that they know. But I keep those things. So where would be the best location for people?
Well, first, I think education is key, right? So with this new system, we're trying to work out the bugs as quickly as we can, and I think people need to memorize and learn their addresses. The people in the households need to learn the addresses whenever they're going to make calls for emergency services, right? They should be utilizing those addresses. It's not to say that the old system won't work, and if you're not sure, right, you do the description, you try as best you can to tell where you're at, we're still going to find you, right? That's our job. We want to make sure that people are safe and secure. And I mean, the whole system is predicated on people learning the addresses. So it's an evolution. It's going to get better and better. It's going to become more efficient as we go along. The letters are going out and they're around. You know, people should be looking at that information. It's important, right? It's just like the number for the peacekeepers, the number for the fire hall, the number to your best friend, right? It's something that you memorize. As far as the magnets go, you know, put it on your fridge. Make sure that people know it's there. Put it on the fridge next to the peacekeepers number, right? That's where all of the emergency services are dispatched through. For the sticker, you can place it on your door with your address so people know when they arrive, right? This is the right place.
Ah, that's true. I didn't think of that. You know, and that's why I was wondering, you know, why they gave both. That was my other question, you know, why there were both a sticker and the magnet. But because the magnet to me made sense, I was putting it next to the peacekeepers and the fire brigade, you know, but that's for emergency purposes.
Yeah, again, just to have the option for the individual, whatever they feel is the best, you know, for their home. I think most people have magnets on their fridge anyways, you know, for various things.
Just clear a good spot to show where it is, you know.
No, and again, it's if you have many reasons it could be used. You know, obviously, by people in the home can memorize it and know what it is. If I live in a home and people live there, but what if you have a guest in your home?
Exactly.
And they may not know how to explain where you are, but if they go and it's on the fridge or by the phone, they know exactly. Okay, I'm at this address, and no, send. I need a police officer. I need a fire. I need police ambulance, whatever it may be.
That's true. I guess in terms of other emergencies, what would people use? Like, supposing you were out and you seen an accident or someone get bumped and it's not with the home, do you go back to the old system in, I don't know, the bottom of the Clay Mountains and I'm here?
Yeah, I think right now the system is so new, we are utilizing it, right? Peacekeepers have been using it for a long time, and it's an evolution, as I said before, but the old system still works, right?
Okay.
If you know where you're at and you know the location, like I'm at OCR and the corner, the intersection near OCR gas bar, there's an accident, then you make that description. You know, as we go along, you know, the community was fairly resistant years ago to having street signs and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's about education then. People will have to learn the new names, and maybe somewhere down the road we will have those signs, right? But until then, the old description for that kind of thing still works. I think right now the vast majority of our calls, right, are to particular locations.
Yeah.
So it's important that people at those locations learn these addresses, right? And everyone within a particular place learns the address and starts to use it, so that way it becomes second nature.
Yeah, that's a good idea, you know, because that's what I'm saying. If we don't use it and then you need to use it and you don't remember it, you know, that was my other question, because how many people are going to be willing to do that? You know, I live on an easy street. I'm just off 132, so for me, it's easy direction, you know, that people will be able to find. But I'm thinking people who are a little further in or in the new development where there may not be street names yet or may not, you know.
Right, and I think by learning the addresses and then using them, right, it makes it a lot easier, because what happens is when they connect with our dispatcher, they'll give an address, right? Right. 123 Wolf Road, for example. Yeah. You know, just for example, the dispatcher can type that in and see where it is, and then they can give directions to our peacekeepers, right? Because not every location is necessarily known.
Right.
Right. So it's going to help us in the long run, and then as the system evolves and gets better, when the dispatcher is able to type in the location and it populates and it goes to the officers who are on patrol, then it's easy for them to see where the location is. But for now, right, it's new system. We're just working out the kinks. I think it's going to help us in a lot of ways. And most of the community is mapped out as it is, right? So we're able to see where a location is anyways. And if we can get to a location, we can get there and we can help you.
Okay. Go ahead, Lloyd.
No, yeah, just maybe another point I want to emphasize, because you were touching on it earlier in the show about areas like on the what we used to call the farm area back in the day.
Yeah, really.
Off of 207 and 132, and in the back there, again, area has grown a lot over the years. It's you go right back there. Like, can you somebody? I didn't know a house was over here. I didn't know somebody built here. Oh, there's 2 houses back there, or somebody's driveway. It's a very long driveway, and from the road you can't even see the home, so you don't even know who lives back there. Or there's 1, 2, 3, 4 homes, and you're not sure. So again, this system would help find that location easily, because especially in the evening, if you're going on some of these smaller roads, it's hard to find a driveway, where you need to go. So if you had a mapping system like we have now, it's much easier to find out where people are. And again, it's all about response times, and again, there to avoid a catastrophe.
When will all of the envelopes be distributed to the community? Is there a time frame? Is it going by sections? I'm not sure how that part of it is happening.
Well, it's rolling out now. And I'll just tell you as quickly as possible. We're hoping to have them all done in another week or so, if not shorter. But it's going out as quick as possible. And at the same time, we're verifying addresses. We're verifying the map. We're making modifications to the map. So it's taken. It's a little bit longer than we anticipated, because it's an immense project, going to 2,500 homes in the community, and plus businesses and everything else, and verifying. So the rollout's taking a little bit longer, but we're doing it as quickly as possible. Like I said, and for those who have their address now, they can utilize it. But you utilize the address, but also you can still use the old way, if you want to call it, or the existing way.
Pizza delivery guys add the way. That works well.
They can still, for a pizza delivery, you can still say, I live on the blue house on the third house in the corner, or whatever. I'm
laughing. It's funny, but it's not really, because sometimes the delivery guys know more streets than some of the people in our community.
Definitely. That's fact. I mean, they have a vested interest in selling you a pizza.
David,
and I can give you a little bit of a history of the evolution. I think older people remember the siren going off for fires in town. The town was small enough that everybody in town could hear the siren. If you needed an ambulance, the dispatcher would call individuals to come and answer an ambulance. The town spread out toward the Elders Lodge. They couldn't hear the siren, so another siren was put on directionally, pointing down toward the Elders Lodge, so people could hear that were volunteering. Then they went to a paging system also. After the paging system, we went to a phone app. We have a phone app now, so in my mind, I have no qualms about saying that this is an evolutionary step for us. It's a necessity, going to this addressing, and I know that the guys at the hall are going to be relieved. That anxiety's gone, that stress, and I know I'll sleep a lot better at night knowing that these addresses are going to be popping up now.
And it'd be quicker to respond. I'm sure, Dwayne, your people are in the same boat as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we always like to pride ourselves on being able to respond anywhere in the territory within a certain time frame, right? Absolutely. So this is going to help us to continue to do that. So it's vital and it's important, and I like the way David put it, right? I mean, now with these new addresses, it's going to make it easier for emergency responders to find where you're at and to provide you with emergency services.
And you never know what the call is going to be. You give symptoms and things, and sometimes that extra 30, 40 seconds could save someone's life. And I don't know what other way to put it, but it will, pending on where you're at within the community. There was a few years back, they talked about putting another station out the other end of town because it was getting so big, thinking as part of the planning out there, a small station, for the fire brigade, the peacekeepers, and, I remember people laughing, but look at it now, how big it is, and it's long, to actually get from the location here to the opposite end of town.
Yeah, for sure. The community has grown so much, right? I mean, just in the last 10 years, 20 years, go back even further, right? How much it's grown. So there definitely is a need, and this is answering one of those needs for emergency responders.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else, guys? We have about 4 minutes. Is there any other thing we should let the community know that I think is important, on this? If people have questions, who can they call, and who's the main contact, Lloyd?
Well, I think at the MCK Communications located at the old Fleur store in the village, but it's the Red Building right on River Road next door to Macomber's Convenience. They have all the information there. They have been the primary resource for giving out a lot of the information. They have it they have a big 56-inch TV screen there where you can go there, you can see your location, pick up the information, and they'll be able to answer all your questions. And so that would be a most ideal place. But public safety is always available. We're 632-0635 our number. We'll answer your questions as well, but I think best way is to see a visual of it. That if you have questions, you can see it, if you may identify, maybe even identify there's a mistake somewhere, and then by all means, we can note it. It can be fixed quickly, and we'll get it done. Like I said, there are some quirks we're working out. I mean, as I said, it's an immense project. It's computer based and stuff, and dealing with computers, sometimes you have some quirks. But we're working on making it user friendly for the first responders as well, making it effective as possible. Like I said, the address in there with the names and stuff. That's something. Again, like I said earlier in the show, let it roll out. And get things working, get it operational. Then we can always look and revisit people who may have concerns about the name or need some clarity on certain spots. But those are things that we could fix. If we could blanket this out and cover 95% of the cases one shot, and then we'll work on tweaking those last 5%.
Yeah, because I think that's really important. It's like a new system, so you're going to have other things that will pop up. We talked a little bit about new homes. That for sure will be a process in itself to get them hooked up into the system as soon as possible. Those kinds of things, and that happens in our community.
Yep. Yeah, and like the way it was mapped out as well. That sometimes they had left gaps in there. Like they'll put like a 1 and put a 5 and then a 8 or whatever the numbers may be. To leave a gap, because if they notice an area that has open space and there's a possibility of a home being built there in the future, so leave a gap in the number. So we may add an address in the middle and down the road sometime. So it's flexible, and as well as, and if need be, like for example, you could have 8 and 8A if need be, down the road. So again, I have nothing but positive things to say about the goal here. Because it's all about safety. It's all about ensuring that the peacekeepers get there in a timely fashion. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, it could stop the escalation of a serious event and mitigate it before it gets started. It could literally save a life in terms of minutes. In event of a heart attack or major accidents, it could stop a small fire from being a large fire. And so those are the things that people got to focus on, and we've been focusing on as first responders and in public safety, and that's the driving force of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, David, Lloyd, and Dwayne for joining me today. If you have an opportunity to go out and check out the kiosk today and tomorrow.
Today and Friday.
And I think, like you said, seeing the map might get people to really take a look at what we're talking about today. It's all about safety, people.